All right, Washington Commanders fans, pay close attention to what I'm about to say, because what happened in Dallas wasn't just another loss. It was the end of the line. We're receiving information and seeing clear signs that a drastic change, a real shakeup, is about to happen within our organization. Don't go anywhere, because what we're going to discuss today goes far beyond the 44-22 score. We're going to talk about who's on borrowed time and why the front office's patience has finally run out. Stick with me until the end, because the immediate future of our team is being decided right now. So don't forget to leave a like. It's just one click, and it helps me a lot. Let's face the facts. Losing to the Cowboys in their house is never easy, but the way we lost was embarrassing. We're now 3 wins and 4 losses, and the excuse of injuries, like Detrick Wise's or Will Harris's, doesn't cut it anymore. We already knew they were out. The problem is that we saw the exact same script as every other week, a defense that can't stop anyone. It's the same story, the same mistakes, and no answers. This defense continues to be one of the worst in the entire league, and this performance in Dallas was the definitive proof that something is fundamentally broken. The offense even tried to keep us alive. Shortly before halftime, we managed to score and narrow the gap, leaving the score in an achievable situation. It was a one-possession game in essence. At that moment, the defense had the golden opportunity to close the door, go to the locker room with morale, and receive the ball on the return. But what happened? We saw the worst defensive drive of the entire season at the worst possible time. This sequence of plays, this total implosion, is what should and will cost some people their jobs. There's no way to defend the indefensible anymore. Let's break down this nightmare, because you need to understand the gravity. Jaden Daniels led the offense, even with absences, and gave us a touchdown. The score was 20-15. The opposing team had only 45 seconds on the clock before halftime. 45 seconds. All the defense needed was to prevent a long play. But Dak Prescott immediately found George Pickens for 44 yards, totally burning Marshawn Lattimore. Soon after, Javonte Williams ran for 33 yards, dragging Quan Martin for about 10 yards as if he wasn't even there, stopping at the 2-yard line. It was pathetic. And to close the coffin of the first half, Prescott found Jake Ferguson completely free in the end zone for the touchdown. In 35 seconds, they crossed the field and turned a competitive game into 27-15 with only 10 seconds remaining. The offense did its part, fought, and the defense threw it all in the trash in less than a minute. This 35-second drive isn't just a bad drive, it's the final nail. It's the justification for immediate changes, whether it's putting players on the bench or firing members of the coaching staff. We can't wait any longer. The first obvious change has a name and number. Marshawn Lattimore can no longer be a starter on this team. He was exposed in a humiliating way on that 44-yard play and has been a constant weak point. Patience is over. With Jonathan Jones finally returning from injury and ready to play, the change is clear and needs to happen this week. We can no longer afford to put a player on the field who is a constant target for opposing offenses. Jones's return is the perfect opportunity to finally put Lattimore on the bench and see if we can get some stability. But benching a player doesn't solve the core problem. And here I speak directly about the defensive coordinator, Joe Witt Jr. We need to have a very serious conversation about his job. He may even be doing what he can with the pieces he has, but what is unforgivable is the absolute lack of adjustments. Week after week, we see the same explosive plays being allowed. We see the same players making the same coverage or positioning mistakes. There's no change in strategy, no attempt to surprise. It's the same failed plan every week. And what irritates me the most as a fan is seeing this stubbornness and not giving younger players a chance. We have new linebackers on the roster who barely set foot on the field, who don't get a real opportunity to show their worth. Meanwhile, we continue to see veterans like Bobby Wagner suffering absurdly in clear passing situations. Wagner is a well-known name, but his coverage performance this year has been far below expectations. Why not test the younger players? Why insist on the same ones who are clearly not delivering results? To worsen this whole scenario, the season seems to be slipping through our fingers. We received the news that Jaden Daniels left this game early with a hamstring injury. Furthermore, our best receiver, Terry McLaurin, remains out, and there is no forecast for when he will return. The team is hurt, the defense is broken, and confidence is on the floor. At 3-4 and with the Kansas City Chiefs coming up next week, the scenario is desperate. It's time to stop trying to save the season and start thinking about the future. The management needs to act now. The trade deadline is approaching and we need to be realistic. What do we have to lose at this point? The current results couldn't be worse. Continuing to do the same things with the same people will only lead us to more humiliating defeats. It's time to make the drastic changes we mentioned. Put the young guys into play, test new schemes, see who really wants to be here and who can be part of the solution for next year. We can no longer be afraid to change. The time for final evaluation has arrived. I want to know what you think. If you, like me, think the main change needs to be in the coaching staff, that is, in Joe Witt Jr., leave your like on this video. But if you think the biggest problem is the players, like Lattimore, and that trades need to be made, comment below which player you want to see gone. And if you're tired of all this and want to closely follow this reform, subscribe to the channel now, because we're going to cover every step of this change. My big question is, with the season practically lost and the trade deadline knocking on the door, will the management have the courage to only make internal changes, or are we about to see a liquidation of players that we considered untouchable? Now, we all know that this season has been difficult in terms of injuries, but during the game against the Cowboys, we experienced a heart-stopping moment. For a few minutes, it seemed that our situation, which was already desperate, was going to become impossible. I'm talking about the scare with Luke McCaffrey. Stay with me, because we're going to analyze exactly what happened, why it was so scary, and what the official update is on his health, which brings a huge relief to all of us and changes the immediate scenario of our team. To understand the size of the panic, we need to remember how we entered this Week 7 game. Our group of receivers was completely exhausted. Noah Brown was placed on the injured list because his recovery simply wasn't progressing, and what was a huge frustration for all of us, Terry McLaurin was out for the 4th game in a row. Coach Dan Quinn seemed optimistic about him earlier in the week, but at game time, he was not available once again, and it didn't stop there. As if those important absences weren't enough, we also took the field without Deebo Samuel Sr., who was dealing with a complicated calf problem. This meant that we started the game against Dallas with only 3 healthy receivers from the main roster. We had to call Robbie Chosen up from the practice squad just to have enough bodies on the field. It was a complete disaster situation even before the first whistle of the match. And then, at the end of the first half, the nightmare almost came true. Luke McCaffrey was acting as a blocker on the kick return and took a very nasty fall. He fell awkwardly and seemed to hit the back of his neck or head hard on the turf. It was one of those moments when the stadium goes silent and we fans freeze. He lay on the ground, motionless for a moment, and fear took over all of us watching. The Washington medical team rushed onto the field immediately to attend to him. Seeing him walk straight to the locker room without returning to the sideline only increased the anxiety. On social media, the fans were desperate, and rightly so. It was the last thing our offense needed at that moment. McCaffrey may not be getting many passes yet, but losing another player, any player, in that already damaged unit would be devastating. Fortunately, during halftime, we received the news we desperately needed. The medical evaluation was positive. Luke McCaffrey was cleared by the doctors to return to the game, as the scare was nothing serious. And to prove that everything was fine, he was the player who covered the kickoff to start the second half. It was an unbelievable relief. The entire organization took a deep breath because we really can't take any more bad injury news. Now, we can only hope that this is the last time we talk about receiver injuries this season. We fans really can't take any more scares like that. If you also had your heart in your mouth watching that scene and breathed a sigh of relief with the news, leave your like on this video to show that we are together in this tension. And if you want to be the first to know when McLaurin and Samuel will finally return, subscribe to the channel because I bring the updates as soon as they come out. We escaped this time, and fortunately, McCaffrey is fine. But this whole situation exposed how dangerously fragile our roster is at the moment. My question, and I want you to think carefully about this, is with so many important players still out and with no definite date to return, does this team have enough depth to survive the rest of the season? Or was this scare just a warning of what is inevitably yet to come?